Wake up. It's the Sleep Unplugged podcast, episode 98, Insomnia and Belief. You only perceive what you believe. Welcome, everyone, to the Sleep Unplugged podcast. My name is Chris Winter. I'm a neurologist and sleep specialist and your host. We're closing in on 100 episodes. This is technically episode 99, if you're paying attention, because I think around episode 10, we had a bonus episode. So we are closing in on a lot of episodes. Welcome. If you're new to the podcast, glad you're here. If you're a veteran of the podcast, welcome back. My name is Chris Winter. You can get in touch with the show through social media. It's Dr. Chris Winter Instagram, Dr. Chris Winter Twitter. That's where we get our listener messages, and we've got a couple this week. The first was from Duff, and Duff said, "It's great that you named Mick Jones and Lou Gramm as potential guests for your podcast, but not Peter Frampton, question mark, question mark, question mark." I was thinking about this stuff, and I think that we need to alter our policy a little bit. We're going to keep our invited guests, but if anybody on the show has been a featured musical guest, like this week, we'll talk about the musical guest, the Buzzcocks. That's where we got the title from. I think anybody who's been featured as the musical influence of the title has an automatic invitation, along with Brad Pitt, Jada, Kihei Clark, and Celine Dion, who has not been a featured musical guest, but she is invited on the show. And then everybody else, if Lou Gramm, Peter Frampton, if any of those people truly want to be on the show, they can do it. We're not going to hold our breath. Our second comment is coming from LW, and she wrote, just missed where she was. She wrote, "Good morning. I was diagnosed with narcolepsy, hypersomnia, and restless leg syndrome in October of 22. Just wanted to thank you for your podcast and tell you how much they've improved my understanding of my conditions. I only began listening yesterday, but now I can't stop." Well, that's a big problem, isn't it? You can't stop listening to the podcast. LW, we're going to get you the help you need to stop, to walk away, to limit yourself to only 1 or 2 episodes a day. We're just kidding. We're so glad you're here. Glad you're finding these things to be helpful. And the final comment I want to make is for one of my patients who is under the age of 18. So I'm not going to mention his name, but he was doing a project for his school about why Americans are not getting enough sleep. And he came up with all kinds of statistics. And my favorite quotation from his paper was, "Sleep is a necessity, not a luxury." So you know who you are. Congratulations. Way to go. Way to spread the word about sleep among the youths. For the title this week, we had been, for the past couple episodes, we've been going back to musical acts and musicians and groups that we had featured before. And I almost did it again with "Change is What I Believe In" from the song I Believe, REM's fourth album, Life Search Pageant. Love that album. Love the cover. Really excited that I figured out on the cover of Life Search Pageant, it's a picture of Bill Berry and some buffalo, and I never put it together that was Buffalo Bill. A little inside joke there, I guess. But the quotation we went for this week was, "You only perceive what you believe," which is off of the Buzzcocks song, "What Do You Know," which is the final song off their it's actually their 2001 re-release of their, I think it was 1984. I'm not sure what the date of it was, but it was the Singles Going Steady compilation. And this was a massive album for the Buzzcocks that were big in the UK. And before they came over, this was released in 79. Sorry, I went a little bit late. So before they came to the United States, they released this Singles Going Steady to kind of introduce America to their music. And it was just a monumental release with so many great songs. My favorite song on there, "Why Can't I Touch It," which is off of one of their re-releases. But this was the final song off the 2001 re-release. And the Buzzcocks were Pete Shelley, Howard Devoto, Steve Diggle, Steve Garvey, who later became their bass player. Their next album, A Different Kind of Tension, had a song called I Believe on it, just like the REM song, had nothing to do with one another. So lots of things we could have chosen. So we'll put you, What Do You Know on our Spotify musical playlist. And forgive me if I'm a little off. It's pretty late. I was in the UK recently and just got in. Our flights were delayed, and so recording this a little late. So if you're expecting it to drop at midnight, it might be a few minutes late. So let's get into this. So it's the first Monday of the month, if you can believe it. It's the first Monday of May. We always talk about a topic related to insomnia for the first Monday of the month. And I thought it would be interesting to explore the concept of belief as it pertains to insomnia, because for a lot of people, the beliefs are a big problem in terms of what's holding them back from getting a handle on their sleep issues. So when we think about these beliefs, they're often defined as being unhelpful, rigid, unrealistic beliefs that you've linked to sleep or linked to your ability to um, get past your insomnia. And a lot of times increasing somebody's cognitive flexibility about sleep has been linked to their post-treatment improvement. And when you talk to insomnia specialists or clinicians that deal with insomnia, we have a pretty decent sense a lot of times when we sit down to start working with somebody how it's going to go. Oh, this person, we're going to get them past their insomnia pretty quickly, or ooh, this might be a while. And for me personally, that rigid cognitive construction, that lack of ability to sort of open up and explore, probe, poke at beliefs is really a big variable in terms of whether or not somebody's going to be successful quickly in dealing with their insomnia. For example, an individual says, I need to get 8 hours of sleep in order to function properly. Or one of my favorites is, I can't sleep if fill in the blank. I can't sleep if I'm on an airplane. I can't sleep if I don't have my noise machine with me. I can't sleep if I don't take melatonin, whatever the belief is. So those are really, they're like little measuring sticks in terms of, well, why do you think you can't sleep if you don't have your melatonin? Well, I don't know. I've just always thought that melatonin is the reason I sleep. And maybe you explain some mechanisms of melatonin and you can tell, oh, really? Well, I didn't know that. Oh, that's really comforting to me. Or I didn't know that some people didn't require 8 hours of sleep. Oh, that's really, you have no idea how those words are impacting me. Like those little things allow me to understand somebody's ability to take in information and readjust the schema that they already have in their brain. And there's ways that we can measure these beliefs. We talked about it in episode, I believe, 45. That was about, are you a good sleeper or a bad sleeper? The dysfunctional beliefs and attitudes about sleep scale, the DBAS. One poor night of sleep will ruin the rest of the week. The 8 hours thing. I'm worried I might lose control over my sleep, which is a big belief. I think control, to me, is the belief that's hardest sometimes to conquer. And the other one that I think goes along with control is, I'm better off taking sleeping pills. So what about these beliefs and why do they matter? There was an interesting study out of Villanova in 2022 called False Beliefs About Sleep and Their Associations with Sleep-Related Behavior. And this study showed that, associations with sleep between sleep-related beliefs and behavior. It was an online survey of 1,120 individuals, and they were given some statements about sleep. And the study was looking at how much these individuals agreed or didn't agree with the statements. So they calculated sort of a belief score and also looked at these beliefs in terms of socioeconomic factors, behaviors, knowledge related to sleep, etc. So overall, belief in sleep myths was really common. 10 out of the 20 false statements were endorsed by at least 50% of the sample. And that sleep myth score varied by socio-demographic factors, including age, gender. Higher sleep myth scores were associated with. So you're more likely to agree with sleep myths if you have a greater inconsistency in your own bedtime, you nap more frequently, you have more in-bed activities, you engage in behaviors incompatible with sleep hygiene recommendations, perceive fewer consequences of inadequate sleep, and finally, short sleep on non-working nights, but not on work nights, which was really, I thought that was pretty interesting as well, too. There was a 2013 study looking at ethnicity and sleep beliefs, and this was done by our good buddy Michael Granier out in Arizona. And basically, in his study, he showed that Black respondents were less likely to report that they were motivated to make time for sleep. Also, there was a trend for Black participants to be more likely to believe that sleepiness is due to laziness and bad habits. So these beliefs become important because these beliefs start to influence our behavior, and they can be culturally pushed upon us. They can be pushed upon us through media, through social media. So lots of ways we can come at these types of things. I'll take a sidestep just for a second. There was a 2023 study out of the UK where I just flew in from that was the associations between paranormal beliefs and sleep variables. So now we're getting outside of you need 8 hours or you're not going to be functional at your work the next day if you don't sleep, and getting more towards paranormal beliefs about sleep. And this was a BBC Magazine survey of about almost 9,000 individuals. And they were looking at poor subjective sleep quality. So uh, for instance, somebody who has a low sleep efficiency, long sleep latency, shorter sleep duration, increased insomnia symptoms in general. These characteristics of bad sleep were associated with a greater endorsement or belief in, number one, the soul living on after death. Number two, the existence of ghosts and demons. And after touring the Tower of London, I believe, I think, in the existence of ghosts and demons. Number three, the ability for some people to communicate with the dead. Number four, near-death experiences are evidence of life after death. And finally, aliens have visited the earth. So in addition to all those things being associated with poor quality sleep, episodes of exploding head syndrome and isolated sleep paralysis were associated with beliefs that aliens had visited the earth and that sleep paralysis was associated with the near-death experiences. All of those things tended to be related to poor quality sleep. So when you start looking at sleep beliefs, it not only influences sleep, but it can also influence other factors. And one that I found to be really fascinating was that relationship between belief, sleep, and mood. And this was from a 2022 study out of Toronto. The role of beliefs about sleep in nightly perceptions of sleep quality across a depression continuum. So 88 participants ages between 18 to 65 who were placed across a depressive spectrum completed sleep diaries and reported their sleep quality and mood every morning. They also did some actigraphy study for these individuals as well. And the results showed that the individuals who upheld greater beliefs about sleep reported worse sleep quality and worse mood upon awakening, even when accounting for nightly variation in actigraphy. So these individuals, basically, the more false or difficult or abnormal beliefs they had about sleep, the more likely they were to be depressed, and vice versa. The more depression, the more unhelpful beliefs that individuals held with sleep. And this should come as no real surprise because we see these things often reflected in the patients that we treat. In 2014, there was a British study that showed that longer sleep onset latency recorded predicted relapses, and that higher dysfunctional beliefs about sleep were found to be associated with lower relapse rates. Isn't that fascinating? So the longer it took you to fall asleep, that was associated with a higher likelihood that you might relapse. But if you had higher dysfunctional beliefs about sleep, that seemed to predict a lower relapse rate. And I looked also at that study to try to figure out, usually in the discussion section, there's sort of theories as to why that might be, and really couldn't come up with a great one on that one. When you look at actually university students, there was a 2022 study out of Australia, dysfunctional beliefs, sleep hygiene, and sleep quality in university students. They recruited about 120 male students, 145 female students, average age of about 20. The results of that study showed that about 60% of the participants, pretty evenly split, although a little bit more women than men, had poor sleep quality associated with poor sleep hygiene, and that there was no significant relationship between dysfunctional beliefs about sleep and the sleep quality in these individuals. So you're kind of flipping the script with the false beliefs, alien abduction, demonic possession individuals, and looking at that population and how their beliefs about sleep relate to their actual sleep. In the university population, it's almost as if the opposite's happening. These individuals probably understand that more sleep is healthier. They've got, a lot more education about their sleep. And when you look at those individuals, there doesn't seem to really be that relationship between those individuals not getting enough sleep and dysfunctional beliefs. I think they know what's going on, but they're participating in poor sleep quality anyway. Italian study in 2022 how elderly people's quality of life relates to their sleep quality and sleep perceived beliefs. 50 healthy older adults, they looked at the quality of their sleep using the World Health Organization's quality of life assessment, and showed that individuals who had dysfunctional beliefs and attitudes about sleep was the only significant predictor in terms of their quality of life in the environmental domain. So it was a very strong predictor when you looked at the quality of these individuals' lives. Those dysfunctional beliefs about sleep really seemed to be predicting that their quality of life would be lower. So when you're looking at all these things, university students, you're looking at young people, you're looking at the elderly, individuals who are depressed, maybe not for whatever reason, the individuals who are trying to stay sober, but for most of the populations, when you look at them out there, dysfunctional beliefs about sleep are holding them back in terms of not only their own sleep quality, but probably quality of life in general. So what do we do about it? I mean, I think that one of the things that we look for in cognitive behavioral therapy is trying to address not only sleep behaviors, but sleep beliefs, and slowly start to work with that individual on helping them understand that perhaps some of those things might not necessarily be true. So when you looked at maladaptive sleep beliefs, there was a 2023 study that was done called Challenging Beliefs for Quality Sleep, a systematic review of maladaptive sleep beliefs and treatment outcomes following cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. So the results of the study, looking at 17 studies, I think made the cut for the review, showed, number one, the reduction in maladaptive sleep beliefs were associated with improved insomnia severity. Number two, reductions in maladaptive beliefs were not associated with changes in sleep efficiency or other sleep parameters. I'm going to take a pause and think about that for a minute. So what it's saying is individuals, when they address these maladaptive beliefs, improve their insomnia quality, but they're not necessarily changing the characteristics of their sleep. And where have we seen that before? When we've talked about sleeping pills, that a lot of times these pills do change insomnia qualities. They lessen insomnia. They make people feel like they're sleeping better. But when you actually record people taking these medications, you put them in a sleep center and record their sleep, you don't really see a whole lot of changes. In fact, we've talked about that with sleeping pills and the actual research behind them. You improve sleep amount 7 minutes or 4 minutes. You fall asleep 2 minutes faster. But when you actually subjectively question individuals about their sleep, it's much better than that. So when you think about a sleeping pill, we've talked about there's a lot of belief in that sleeping pill. And if you can take away the belief in the sleeping pill and create belief in your own ability to sleep, man, that's where the bulletproof sleep comes in, isn't it? That's where you believe in the quality of your sleep. And even if it's not changing significantly from where it was pre-treatment, you feel like you're sleeping better. You feel better the next day. And the final thing from that study was, in some cases, improved sleep parameters preceded reductions in maladaptive beliefs, that maladaptive sleep beliefs may be an important target for improving insomnia. They may initiate a trickle-down process that limits the influence of other cognitive and behavioral processes maintaining insomnia. I love that. That's the bulletproof nature of sleep, isn't it? Where you start to change beliefs. As the beliefs change, the subjective nature of sleep changes. And that's the beginning of a cascade of effects that can be really positive and influential on your sleep. So I don't want this to go on too long. I think this is more than enough talk about belief. What do we do about it? Where do we go from here? I want to challenge you to think about the beliefs you have about your sleep. The belief that you can't sleep unless you have a fan blowing in your room or you've taken a medication. You believe that you're completely dysfunctional at work the next day if you don't get a certain amount of sleep or fall asleep quickly. I think that looking at the things that you believe in, taking a piece of paper out and writing down beliefs about sleep, looking up the dysfunctional beliefs assessment and seeing how many of those things you think about is a great place to start the journey of fixing your sleep. I wrote a book called The Sleep Solution: Why Your Sleep is Broken and How to Fix It. And throughout it, sort of poke at little beliefs, hopefully in humorous ways. Not everybody who read my book thought it was humorous, but I'm trying to sort of look at it from a perspective of, let's try to make light of some of these things, make them funny, which sort of takes the teeth out of them. So I want you to think about the beliefs that you have about your sleep, good and bad, and are they holding you back from getting a better night of sleep? So that's it. My name is Chris Winter. I want to hear about your beliefs about sleep. You can DM me, Dr. Chris Winter Twitter, Dr. Chris Winter Instagram. My books are called The Sleep Solution: Why Your Sleep's Broken, How to Fix It, as well as The Rested Child. We put all of our content on our YouTube Sleep Unplugged page. Check out our Spotify Sleep Unplugged Volume 2 playlist. We'll put the Buzzcocks on there. And of course, they're now invited to be on the Sleep Unplugged podcast. And that's it. Until next week, sleep well.